So, good day to each one of you. We are here now for our uh, reflection for this Sunday readings of the second Sunday of Lent. So, I'd like to reflect on how do we transfigure, how do we transform or become an agent of transformation. Okay, oftentimes we have so many initiatives in our own physical transformation. Sometimes we go for a bonding of hairs. Sometimes we color our hairs in different colors. At the same time, also, some of us would put a tattoo on their eyebrows. Sometimes they change their skin into a lighter one, and different tanning of the skins, so that you can transform, you can transfigure physically. And how about in this our spiritual life? How can we can transform? We have initiatives physically, but the question is, how can we transform also our spiritual life? Physically, we have initiatives, but how can we transform our own souls? It is good to note that the gospel of today talks about the transfiguration of Jesus. And we know the story of the transfiguration. And we know the symbolisms of the characters of the transfiguration. So when Jesus been transfigured, who are with him? Moses and Elijah. So Moses signifies the law, and Elijah signifies the prophets. In other words, Jesus is the fulfillment. Jesus is the one who completes the law and the prophets. So Jesus is the center. Jesus is the very core of the teachings of the spirit of the law and the teachings of the prophets. That's why it's good to note, to have those be reminded of. But we go back again. Okay, how do we transfigure our own souls? As told you, we have initiatives of transforming our physical appearances, but how can we transform ourselves? That's why again we go back to the gospel. And I would like to reflect on the words of the Father, the words of God the Father to Jesus, because his voice came out of the cloud and he says, "This is my beloved Son, my chosen one. Listen to him." And I think those words of the Father, those words, those voice came out of the cloud would help us to realize how we transform, how do we become an agent of transformation, not only transforming our souls, our spiritual life, but also transforming the society. And of course, these readings, especially the words, the voice of the Father, would help us to reflect and connect to the readings of today. So we go back to the word, the voice of the Father said, "This is my beloved Son, my chosen one." So the word chosen. So if we want to transform ourselves, if we want to have an initiative also to transform our souls, I think we must be reminded of our identity. We are God's chosen ones. We are chosen by God. But the question is, when God chose us, of course, from the beginning, because He's the one who created us. Okay? And it also, God chose us by the virtue of our baptism, because we are also children of God, chosen by God, sons and daughters of God. So we are chosen. Let's say go back to the first reading of today in the book of Genesis. Abram was chosen by God from Ur of Chaldea to become the father of all nations. That's why The Lord said, look up the skies, count them. Of course, Abram cannot count them because so many stars in heaven. And the Lord said, that will be your descendants. How can it be? He's old, no sons or no son, no daughter. How can it be? But Abram put his hope, put his trusts, put his faith in God. That's why if you continue to read the book of Genesis, you see and you can find that God gave Abram Isaac. And from that, we came as a nation. That's why he called him Abraham. We called him the father of all nations. See, he's chosen one. And all of us has been chosen by God. That's why we must put forward our faith. We put forward our hope to God. It seems that everything that we are experiencing seems that it is impossible. But through God's grace, God's help, everything will be possible. And oftentimes people are complaining things. You know what I always tell them? Yes, it is difficult, but it is not impossible. I think that's also true. See, Abraham has difficulty, but God make it possible. Why? Because he is God's chosen one. And I think this is important to us. If God chose us, everything will be possible. Everything will become good in the eyes of God. That's why go back again to our identity. We are God's children. We are God's chosen people. And Jesus reminds us, especially the voice of the Father, this is my son, my chosen one. And that is our identity. We are chosen by God. We are God's children. We are sons and daughters of the Father. And again, that being chosen can be seen in the second reading in the letters of Paul to the Philippians. What is the point of St. Paul to the letters to the Philippians? He said, our homeland is in heaven. We are citizens of God, citizens. Our citizenship is in heaven. This is good to know that we are God's chosen people. If we want to transform ourselves, if we want to be transfigured, I think go back again. Our true identity as sons and daughters of God, as children of the Father, and chosen by God. And from that, we can transform because we are reminded that everything is possible in God's grace. We are blessed of so many things. Sometimes we neglect them. We forgot to give thanks to God. And often as we focus on material things, we focus in this world, we forget that we need to prepare ourselves, we need to transform ourselves, we must transfigure our souls through God's grace so that we can transfigure like Jesus. Jesus gave us the example, and we are God's also chosen people. We are God's children, heirs of God's kingdom, at the same time, citizens of heaven. It's beautiful, isn't it? That's why it's a good reminder that this gospel of transfiguration, this second Sunday of Lent, help us to realize our own identity that would help us to transform our souls. What is the second thing? The second one is, this is my son, my chosen one. And the father said, listening to him. Listen. God gave us 2 ears. What is the meaning of that? We need to listen. We must learn how to listen. It is easy to hear things, but listening, it is always a challenge because in listening, we need to focus, we need to understand each word uttered by the other people. People are complaining, people are in a mess, people around us are at war. But the question is, how do we solve those problems? Also in ourselves, sometimes we are complaining, "Oh, I'm tired already. I have so many problems. How can I start things? How can I start my job?" I think let us go back again. Maybe let us sit down, relax, and start to listen to yourself. Because listening to ourselves, it would help us to have focus in life. That's why the words of the Father, he said, listen to Jesus. See the aspect of listening, the virtue of listening. Now, the question is, do we know how to listen? At homes, there are some arguments, misunderstandings, not only at homes, in the society of today. There are so many misunderstandings. Why? Because we don't know how to listen to each other. And oftentimes, we only listen to those who are in position, to those who are high ranking people. At the same time, we only listen to those who are rich. Yes, it's good to listen to them, but don't neglect to listen to other people, especially to those who are marginalized in the society, as if we're only the one who can give contributions. Oftentimes, we forget that other people can give some contributions also. That's why, you see, if we want to transform our society, we want to transform ourselves, our spiritual selves, our souls, I think the best thing that we can do is to listen. So we have the dialogue. In the relationship also, what oftentimes we do, we must listen. Because in listening connotes understanding. In listening, we can also find focus in life. So, my dear brothers and sisters, this is the second Sunday of Lent of our reflection. So, let us see ourselves once again, this journey of Lent in our preparation for the resurrection of Jesus. Let us transform ourselves, be an agent of transformation. We must have also the initiative of transforming our souls, not only physical one, but our spiritual life. Jesus transfigured on the cross, and transfigured in Mount Tabor. Why? To give strength, to strengthen his disciples, to give them hope, to give them courage. And I hope as we transform ourselves, as we transfigure our spiritual self, I think we can strengthen our faith. At the same time, we can strengthen others. So I think that's our short reflection, and I hope you learn something, so that help it would help you to uh, prepare ourselves as a journey this season of Lent. So, my dear brothers and sisters, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and share this reflection. Have a good day, and God bless you all.